This past Sunday was February 2nd, better known as Groundhog's Day. Also happened to be my birthday. But there was a movie with Bill Murray called Groundhog Day. And I'd like to ask you, are you living Groundhog Day? So in that movie, every day at 6 o'clock, his alarm goes off. He wakes up, and the same day is the same day as yesterday. Tomorrow it'll be the same day as today, unless he changes something. It goes on and on and on. So I wrote down several things that I think can take you out of Groundhog Day. If every day seems the same, if you're making the same mistakes, if you're not getting results. So wrote a few down. Going to have to review some notes to tell you. Too many thoughts that I had on this, but these are important, so I hope they help. So the business time loop. Are you struck? So in that movie, the character keeps reliving the same day because he doesn't change. Many entrepreneurs and acquisition mentees do the same thing. They repeat the same mistakes and expect a different result. Definition of insanity. If you keep hitting the same roadblocks, it's time to ask, what am I not changing? And think about that. 2, the most common groundhog mistakes in acquisition, and just about everybody at some point does these things. Analysis by paralysis, overthinking every deal and never pulling the trigger. It will literally usually take you about 5 minutes to know if a deal is hot or not and if you should do that deal. You should also have clear criteria so that you can check, and if you don't hit those checks, you move on to the next one. Tons of people try to massage a bad deal that's not going to work for a long time. Not following the process, pet peeve of mine. Follow the process. They're proven processes that I learned from my mentor and have worked now for 40 years or so. Follow those steps. Be like a racehorse with blinders on. Stay on the step that you're on and don't wing it and say, well, I don't need to follow those steps. Weak negotiations, making the same lowball offers or failing to structure deals properly. Yesterday, had a discussion with a mentee that was going after an acquisition. It was through a broker. There was a listed price. They had agreed on what the price was that they would pay and no more. They were in a negotiation. The offer initially was a low offer that they made. Within reason, that's okay. They got a counter offer that was in their range, but they tried to squeak out a little bit more, and the negotiation broke down. So know when to say yes, when to keep negotiating. Avoiding hard conversations, fear of rejection from sellers, banks, investors, board members, etc. You will face rejection, but follow through on those things and have those hard conversations. Chasing too many deals. I am a fan of keeping a pipeline going because you never know when a deal's going to fall apart. If it does, and if all your eggs are in one basket, that'll be a problem. But focus on that deal. Keep it moving, as well as doing the things you need to do in some other areas of your pipeline. But don't let a deal sit. If you let a deal sit without continuing to action it, it'll eventually die on the vine most of the time. Why people keep repeating their mistakes? Good question. Lack of reflection. They don't analyze what went wrong. Do a postmortem. Figure out what went wrong. Fear of change. Change absolutely is uncomfortable, but that's where growth happens. Everything that you want is outside your comfort zone. No accountability. No one is pushing them to break the old patterns. That's where board members, your mentor can say, look, you've got to change that thing. Okay? Breaking the cycle, how to avoid living groundhog in your deals. Identify the repeating mistake. What's the pattern that's holding you back? Take responsibility. Own your mistakes and stop blaming external factors. No victim mentality. We are all at exactly this place that we're now because of the actions we took or didn't take. Make one strategic change. A small pivot can break the cycle. Had a mentee that told me, Bruce, what you told me about banks doesn't work. They all say the same thing when I talk about seller equity being our equity. they say that I still need to put money in. And I said, well, how do you say it to them? And he says, I say what you said I should say, which is what? And he said, well, you said I should say that some banks take seller equity as our equity. What's your bank's philosophy on that? But that's not what he said. He said, some banks will take seller equity as part of the equity. And if it's part, there's another part, which is what they were looking for him to do. So he dropped the word part and just said, some banks will take seller equity as our equity. What's your bank's philosophy? The next week, he got 4 yeses from banks. Changed one word. Pretty amazing. Okay? Track your actions. What did you do differently? Did it work? Take an A/B test on marketing. Keep track of the results. Know what works better than other things. Get outside perspective, mentor, mastermind group, or coach can see what's missing. That's the reason all sports players that are professionals have coaches. What am I doing wrong? Sometimes you don't see it, but someone else can. So what are the key lessons from Groundhog Days? Bill Murray's character only escaped the time loop when he learned, adapted, and improved. So write that down. I'm going to learn, adapt, and improve. And if you keep facing the same problems, it's a sign that you haven't learned your lesson yet. Analyze those results. So the solution? Take action, change your approach, and finally move forward. And I would ask you to take a challenge here. Ask yourself, what's the one mistake I keep making in business? What's one change I can make today to break that cycle? Act now, or tomorrow will be the same as today. It'll be Groundhog Day for you, which I hope it is not. So recognize that some things will work, recognize some things won't work. Experiment, continually doing the same thing over and over again. Even if you're getting results, test something against it to see if you can get better results. If you haven't read The Goal by Goldratt, I would encourage you to do that. It's on continuous improvement, which is what we all should be doing. Continually improve, even if it's working. Do more of that, but test other alternatives to see if you can come up with something better. So I hope that helps. I hope that if you are looking to understand the steps, you go over to brucewhipple.com, look at the Acquisition Advantage Bootcamp. That'll outline those steps. If you're curious about things like seller finance, there's a recent course that I put up which now is complete, the bootcamp, but the recordings are there. So there's plenty of things that you can do. You can also look at group coaching. We've opened that up for February, so there's an opportunity to join that as well. So I hope all those things help. Groundhog Day was a pretty good movie, but the lessons learned from it and making sure that you don't repeat Groundhog Day, that's important. And if you follow these steps that I've outlined and suggestions, I think you're going to find that things go differently for you, which is what I'd like to see. Have you have the success that some mentees have had? And stay tuned for that. I'm about ready to do some takeaways for my most successful mentee.